Bom dia a todos, bom dia aos alunos do PPGGEL, bom dia a todos os que estão nos assistindo nessa live desta manhã, nessa aula aberta do PPGGEL da Universidade Federal de Santa Maria. Bom, é um prazer estar com todos vocês aqui nesse horário de manhã, nesta terça-feira, e hoje nós temos, então, na nossa programação de aula aberta, uma rápida conversa com o professor Salman Shusterian, da Universidade Real e Instituto de Tecnologia de Melbourne. O professor Salman é um parceiro do Laboratório de Climatologia em Ambientes Subtropicais na execução da pesquisa sobre clima urbano em Balneário Camboriú. O professor Salman é iraniano, mas residente na Austrália já há muitos anos. Ele é formado em engenharia e hoje atua na Universidade de Melbourne, na área de conforto térmico e também na área sobre manejo dos resíduos de construção civil, né? Então, o professor Salman, quando eu o conheci, obviamente via e-mail ou via contatos pela Associação Internacional de Clima Urbano, da qual eu sou membro, eu o convidei para participar da pesquisa justamente por esse currículo que ele tem, né, formado e com uma atuação muito forte na área de conforto térmico e também na área de resíduos de construção civil. Haja vista que Balneário Camboriú é a cidade que mais se verticaliza no hemisfério sul. Então, como ele está na Austrália, também no hemisfério sul, é uma correspondência bastante interessante. Então, agradeço a participação de todos, e o professor Salman fará um breve relato, de no máximo 15 minutos, sobre como é a vida de pesquisador acadêmico e como é a sua trajetória de pesquisa na Austrália. Então, muito obrigado pela participação de todos. Good morning, Salman. I was doing a little bit of an introduction of you for our students. They are watching us here in South Brazil. And I'm going to tell about your ORCID professional information, okay? You are Bachelor of Ferdowsi University of Mashhad in Iran, and you are employed in RMIT University, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology University of Melbourne in Australia. First of all, you worked in the School of Global, Urban and Social Studies, and right now you're in the School of Property, Construction and Project Management, okay? And you're researching in urban thermal comfort, human thermal comfort, and urban human thermal comfort, and in construction and project management right now, okay? I have to thank you for this participation in our live. And right now you have the words to speak for us about your experience in Australia University and Australia as a researcher. And, very important, you're trying to win the Timothy Oak Award, okay?
Thank you so much, Cassio. Thanks for having me tonight. Hello from Australia, from Melbourne, which is in the winter at the moment. And I just found that in South Brazil is still winter. So we have something in common, which is good. And today I'm going to talk about my research journey in 15 minutes. Hopefully in 15 minutes I can finish off all the slides that I prepared for tonight. So as Cassio provided some bit of background about my research, my PhD was about human thermal comfort, and at the moment I'm working with Cassio on a project which is about outdoor human thermal comfort assessment. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. If there's a problem with my audio, if I'm not audible, please let me know. Hopefully, yeah, you'll see my screen in a few seconds. Great. So
yes,
here's what's that? All good? Yeah, okay. I'm going to start. So this is a presentation on my research journey in PhD and in 15 minutes. My name is Salman Shushtayan. So a bit, let me see. So this is the structure of my presentation for tonight, for this morning for you, tonight here. My research profile, background of research, rationale for research, aim and objectives of my PhD research, methodology that I use, result discussion, conclusion, and contribution to the body of knowledge. These are the things that you have to, these are the requirements that you need to meet for a PhD project, PhD research project. So here's my research profile. I've got a bachelor in horticulture engineering, Ferdowsi University of Mashhad, Iran. This is where I'm coming from originally. I completed my master in urban horticulture from Shiraz University in 2009, and my research was about ground cover plants application in urban green spaces. I started my PhD in 2013 in RMIT University. I received 3 scholarships at a time and finished my PhD in 4 years in 2017, and my research was about outdoor thermal comfort in Melbourne. So in 2018, I recruited as a research fellow at RMIT University and currently working on construction and demolition-based management in Australia. This is a bit different from my PhD research, but it's always good to, investigate different fields of study because you can increase your knowledge, you can sort of improve your, the opportunities for collaboration with different researchers. At the moment, I'm working with researchers from Australia, Germany, Brazil, Castillo, Iran, China, Ecuador, Eritrea, and published 5 books, 32 journal articles, and many conference papers. So a bit of background about my PhD research. So rationale for this research, for any research, everyone needs to, a researcher needs to provide a rationale for doing a research. So my rationale was based on rapid growth of population and migrations from rural areas. I think this is a case for most of countries, developing countries and developed countries. And this population growth comes with a fast pace of urban sprawl across developed countries. And this results in transition from natural spaces to hard surfaces in cities, such as roads, buildings, different infrastructures needed in a city. And definitely this change will have some impact on livability of built environment and human health. So my research focus was on educational precinct in Australia. So it's all about thermal comfort. What is thermal comfort? Thermal comfort is sort of a benchmark to understand the impact of weather conditions on human health. So based on ASHRAE, which is American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, Air Conditioning Engineers, is that condition of mind that express satisfaction with the thermal environment. So to assess and to estimate thermal comfort, normally there are 6 factors that are considered. Air temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, and solar radiations are the environmental variables that are measured. And there are 2 personal factors, including level of clothing insulation, the clothes that you put on every day, and level of metabolic activity, which is related to the level of activity that you have in a day. It can be sitting, it can be running, it can be walking. They all have different metabolic activity rates. So this is a research hypothesis. For a research, you need to have a research hypothesis. You need to have questions and objectives. So universal thermal comfort standards are there. There are some standards about thermal comfort that you can, as a researcher or as a urban planner or urban designer, that you can follow, and you can estimate thermal comfort. In my research, I challenged the adequacy or suitability of these standards, and I mentioned that these standards might not be applicable to different contextual conditions. So this hypothesis led me to come up with 3 research questions. What are the extent of thermal comfort standards applicability to educational urban precinct in the context of Australia? To what extent can contextual factors influence users' thermal perceptions, and what are the factors influencing usage pattern and behavior in educational outdoors? In simple words, I'm trying to understand. I was trying to understand whether these standards are suitable for every condition, every cities, every culture. And then in the second question, I wanted to know whether, for example, the level of education, the position, the cultural background, different psychological, social, and physical factors have any impact on the way that we perceive weather conditions or not. And in the third question, I was trying to understand how people use outdoor spaces. So I use a methodology that involved using case study. The study was conducted in the context of Melbourne and RMIT University City Campus. RUCC in short was the case study, and it's located in the heart of Melbourne Central Business District, CBD. And this campus, RUCC, is subject to a range of issues, including urban heat island effects causing by surrounding high-rise building, densely urbanized and crowded spaces. As you can see in this figure, here is CBD, Melbourne CBD, and this is the air temperature profile, and you can see in the CBD, higher air temperature value were recorded. So we know that there is a problem here because of all the buildings, because of lack of suitable green spaces and all that hot surfaces. And I try to understand how people interact with weather conditions. So these are the 3 case studies or 3 sites that I use for assessment of thermal comfort. As you can see, they are in approximity to each other, and this is something that I called educational precinct. So precinct is an area in where different buildings have the same functionality. So buildings here, mostly educational buildings, and this is RMIT University City Campus. So just some images from the study sites that I had. Site 1 in this area, this is the second site, and this is the third site. And all these sites located in this campus. All right, this is the research process, or something that we call conceptual framework for research. So I started with investigation of physical feature of the case studies that I just showed you in the previous slide. So I measured sky view factor and height to weight ratio. These are some technical words and technical terms that I skip to just show you the whole process of the research. Then I moved on to step 2 in my framework. I started, doing a field survey that included questionnaire survey. So I gave the questionnaire survey to people to fill out and tell me how they feel at that moment in terms of the weather conditions and things like that. And then in the step 3, I measured thermal conditions at the concurrent time. And in step 4, I observe how people use these 3 spaces, whether they're sitting or talking or studying or things like that. So I investigated that to see on the different weather conditions how people interact with these outdoor spaces. And in step 4, I concluded whether the universal thermal comfort standards are suitable for this context or not. So these are the physical features of these spaces. These are called sky view factors. I just skip them, and also I use climate zone classification to classify my study spaces. And then thermal assessment survey. This is the questionnaire that I was talking about that was based on this ASHRAE standard 55, ISO 7730, and ISO 10551. These are the universal thermal comfort standard that I was referring to earlier in my presentation. So recruitment of participants was conducted among students, employees, and others who use these case studies. And obviously there was the ethics that I had to go through to get the approval. And physical measurement also done in two ways, stationary and mobile measurement. I'm going to show you some photos of these two measurement modes, and I use three thermal comfort indices. So it's PET, outset, and UTCI. These are the thermal comfort indices used specifically for outdoor spaces. So you can see my measuring devices. The one in the below, it's a portable or station. It's a mobile weather station that was measuring air temperature, relative humidity, and wind speed and solar radiation, while people were filling out the survey that I gave to them. And the photos above showing my stationary measuring devices that were there for 3 months, 3 seasons actually, for about 8 months. And they were recording air temperature and relative humidity and solar radiation for a long time. So also I had a field observation, as I mentioned in my research framework, that included 3 minutes, 30 minutes and 2 days for each site for each season. What I was observing, how many people attended the outdoor spaces, type of activity, and type of usage. So these photos showing how people were filling the survey, the questionnaire that I gave to them, and you can see that they were filling the surveys close to the portable weather station here and here, because I wanted to understand how they feel about weather conditions while I was measuring the environmental parameters such as air temperature and relative humidity. So for data screening analysis, this is another stage of a research, and each research has this stage depending on the data that they collect. So I used SPSS. This is a software. I'm pretty sure that you've heard about it if you've done a quantitative based research before. So version 22, I use it to analyze my data, plus Microsoft Excel version 10. In total, I collected 65,700 data points from the field surveys. These were the data that I collected included 1,059 surveys from people, obviously, and in the observations, I collected 2,400 data points and 3 data sets for 3 seasons. And I use different analytical techniques to analyze my data. So you can see I didn't limit myself to only one method. So I use different methods, a combination of methods for different purposes. So these are the results. For example, in a microclimate conditions, obviously there was a difference between different seasons. I had a spring, summer, and autumn, and they all recorded different air temperature values. Also, what was interesting in my research was that between sites there were some differences. So it means that these sites with different configurations had different impact on the weather condition at the same time. This is a table. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly. This is participants' profile. What interesting to report is the age of participants being 60% between 18 and 30 years old. In terms of position, 62% of them, about that number, were students. In terms of residency, 63% of them, about that number, were not from Melbourne. So either they were from different cities in Australia or they were international students. If I skip these, the other data, so these are the thema responses that I received from people. As you can see in the spring, more people voted for a slightly cool, neutral, and slightly warm. These three categories in this scale, they indicate comfortable. They were representing that people were comfortable in a spring. So we definitely expect that, because the spring is a mild weather condition, and then people shouldn't be really dissatisfied with thermal comfort. But as we move on to next season, summer, you can see more people felt it's warm, and less people felt it's a comfortable weather. And as you can see, autumn, which is Melbourne, can really be cold. People mostly felt slightly cool and cold. So you can see different seasons had different impact on people thermal responses. In terms of thema preferences, all these indications and all these measures are showing how people interact with weather condition, different seasons. As you can see, in autumn, obviously more people wanted warmer weather, and in summertime, they wanted more cooler weather. So I just skip these technical like information, because obviously more time needed to establish what the meaning and the concept behind them. I'll just show you more interesting results. This is a theoretical framework that I use for my research. I would like to draw your attention to this part. Each research, if you want to do it properly, if you want to do it like a world class, if you want to be very persuasive in a way that you convince people that your research is right, it needs a theoretical framework. What it means, you get the data, data says something, but you need to interpret the data. You always need to explain what this data is showing you, right? So that's where a theoretical framework is needed. So you use well-established theories and models to explain the data. So I use a multi-model theoretical framework for my research to explain how people are satisfied with the thermal environments and thermal satisfaction. I used allostasia, which is a theory developed in 1971, and it says that people have desire for change in condition. For example, if this is summer, people want winter. If this is winter, people want summer. So that's allostasia. And then high expectations of people. This is also what I observe in the responses, and this is based on theory of rising expectations developed in 1969 by Davis, and it is saying that people from developed country and wealthy country, they have higher expectations over everything, including outdoor weather conditions. And also people who come to Australia to like study, so normally they are from wealthy family backgrounds, so again they have a high expectations of everything. So that would make sense to see some of the responses say that, oh, we are not happy with the weather conditions. Weather conditions is too hot or too cold and things like that. And the other one was based on contextual factors that I mentioned, and that was socio-ecological system model that I used, which is based on adaptive comfort. And it's saying that even the culture, even the country that you're coming from, the position position that you have, the salary that you get, your age, your gender, anything like that might have some impact on the way that you expect thermal condition, or the way that you're satisfied with the thermal conditions. So let's have a quick look at the result in one of these models, which is contextual factors. So this is the detailed extension of this contextual factors model that I used for my study. It included 5 layers, as you can see here. It started with individual environment, from the bottom goes to top, social environment, then move up to physical environment and psychological environment, and then policies and standards. So I assume that these environments have some impact on people thermal perceptions. So I try to put it into context and see whether they have a statistically significant impact on people thermal perceptions. So in the first environment, I found out of 6 factors, such as age, gender, level of clothing, level of activity, even skin color, and exposure to sun. 4 of these factors um, actually had statistically significant impact on thermal comfort. In the next environment, which was social, out of 4, 3 had significant impact, such as position, being academic or non-academic, and cultural background, whether they're coming from tropical, dry, temperate, or cold background or country. Next, physical environment. As I show you, I also compared different physical features of the study spaces. Excuse me. So in this environment, out of 5 factors that I investigated, I found there are 3 factors that have impact on people thermal perceptions. And psychological environment, there were 7 factors, and 4 showed that had some impact on people thermal perceptions. So I just skip these slides. I fear that it might be boring to you. Just quickly go through the conclusions. So the result of my study provided valuable information on the requirements of thermal comfort and influential factors in the use of outdoor spaces in educational urban precincts. So these findings successfully support the research hypothesis that I mentioned earlier in my presentation on inadequacy or not appropriateness of thermal comfort standards in the study context. So also I recommended further studies in this area. So I recommended that future research or other researchers investigate the precise role of other contextual factors and effects of non-uniform condition on prediction of outdoor thermal comfort, and to explore the effect of changes in urban settings on microclimate and thermal perceptions using simulation tools. Also, contribution to the knowledge. This is the part that every PhD researcher needs to sort of show evidence or to prove. So there's a contribution to the body of knowledge. You've done something for the science. You've done something for the research field that you are in. So my contribution to the body of knowledge in thermal comfort research was that the databases that I obtained for outdoor conditions, they will help develop the criteria and the standard for assessment of outdoor thermal comfort in the context of oceanic climate. So this is the climate that Melbourne has, and a research framework I'll show you. It can be used by other researchers. I had one collaborator from Ecuador, and they use this research framework to also establish the impact of contextual factors on people thermal perception. So they use my methodology. So that's sort of my contribution to the body of knowledge. And results provided spatial planners, designers, and managers with valuable information resulting in more information decisions on design and development of urban spaces. What it means, so if you want to create a urban space, you need to be mindful of the consequences of different things on people health and well-being, because when you create outdoor spaces, you want people to use it. If it's unused, you're not successful designer, manager, or urban planner. So you need to consider these sort of things related to people thermal comfort. And at the last point of my contribution was calibration of comfort indices. I show you such as PT, UTCI thermal ranges into associated physiological thermal stresses. So this is the last main contribution to the body of knowledge. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your patience. I'm not sure how this works. Obviously, I went over 15 minutes that I promised, but yeah, I'm happy to stay if there's any questions for me. Thanks, Kasim. Sorry, you're on mute.
Okay. Sorry. Sometimes we forget to activate the microphone. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very, very interesting. And we can see how similar are the researches in human thermal comfort in Australia and Brazil. I was wondering about this problem of the prediction, human prediction for the better conditions. Of course, unhappy people are always the problem because here in Brazil we have the same problem when we are interview the population. What are you feeling right now? What's your sensation right now? People, I am. It's a little bit cold or a little bit warm, but what do you really prefer for the best condition? No, it's okay right now. Oh, come on. Try to decide yourself what you really like or not. But Simon, it's very interesting that you have a very complex and different formation, academic formation. You was graduated in horticulture engineer. Afterwards, you worked with urban thermal and human thermal comfort, and right now you're trying to School of Property and Management in building construction. I would like to know. I have three questions for you, and afterward, I'm going to ask to my students and teachers that they are watching us about your career in Australia. Okay, the first question is, how difficult was to have a different way of professional activities in your life? Is it so hard to have to initiate a life in a different context in your career?
All right, that's really interesting question, and I got this question couple of times in the past. So I would say, it's all about the passion. If you have a passion for something, you definitely go different directions, and then when you get a skill, you can apply that skill to different contexts, right? So if you are a handyman, if you're a tradie, if you're someone who knows technical things, it doesn't matter if this is a refrigerator, or if this is a TV, or if this is a fan, or this is a like radio that you're trying to fix. So you've got the skills, you can apply it. Obviously there are some trainings needed, some efforts needed to be put into that. Obviously, if you're coming from, for example, thermal comfort, moving to construction and demolition waste, it takes time for you, right? It's about research as well. The nature of research is multidisciplinary, right? So when you're talking about sustainability, for example, if it's not about water, air, it's about water, air, human, society, community, technology, different things that you need to consider. So it's all about my passion. I always loved research. Since 2000, I would say 6, I started doing my research journey. So in 2006, when I graduated from bachelor, I got myself involved in some research projects, and I admitted to master studies. I had my own research project, which I was leading, and then that led to another research project, and so on and so forth. So after that, you see yourself in a situation that you can handle different things. It doesn't matter if this is from that direction or that direction. And I think real world issues, we need to approach it in a way that is that would be multidisciplinary. So it means that if there is an issue in a real world, we need to approach it from different angles. It's not just you look at it like from one side. You need to know the different side, and that really helped me a lot in doing different research projects, because I bring bits and pieces from different studies and the research experience and put something together which is more believable, and more people can actually relate to it, and more people would understand. I think this is something similar around these lines, if that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. Love, interdisciplinary, and fearless are the key words of this
Exactly.
for a successful career in academic life. Yes, I know. I say this for my students: if you love what you do, you never work in your life. Okay. The second question is about is it possible, and how can you take your knowledge in this research and then apply it in public laws in Australia? Is it possible to apply this in public laws in Australia about human thermal comfort for the construction of a city, the planning of the urban spaces? How is Australia in this way of application data?
I think Australia is one of the leading countries in terms of using research in policy development. So people here from it's not perfect. I wouldn't say that, but this is one of the excellent instances among other countries where researchers have a say in what authorities do, right? So if my research thermal comfort, I remember at the time from city of Melbourne, some people approached me and they wanted to look at my results, and they wanted to see how they can actually transfer the knowledge that I created in my PhD into their planning and into the policy development. So they use part of it, and they try to actually come up with something that shows how the weather conditions like and how people would feel about it. So they use my research in sort of in the policy development processes. Also, I use my research findings in developing some courses in University of Melbourne, where I'm teaching a course called Design for Living Spaces. So there were some students from design background and urban planning, so I taught them. That wasn't part of the curriculum, and I taught them, if you're creating a space, if you want that space to be successful and it is used by people, you need to also consider thermal comfort. You need to assess thermal comfort. For example, if you put trees on the street, what it means in summer, what it means in winter, what it means in autumn. If you don't put them, what differences it will make. So I taught them that this is very important. People are very concerned about what the weather condition. If this is a good weather condition, they come out and it has some environmental, social, and economic benefits. For example, we're saying that there are some shops around this street. If more people attend that space, it means that there are more customers for these shops, right? So you can see how research can take off and how research can lead to another, context. So in terms of combination of different knowledge from different disciplines, just give you an example. Last year, I put in an application about use of construction and demolition waste, or basically building waste that is coming from construction site. And I propose that we can use this like waste for urban green spaces and as a medium, and people can actually use it and combine it with other materials, and they can create a medium which is commercially approved, and that then we can have a better thermal comfort conditions. You see, three different knowledge. One is thermal comfort, the other is construction waste, and the third one is thermal comfort. So at one stage you would be able to put them together and come up with some new concept, which this is what we are going to do as a researcher. We're not going to repeat what other people did it in the last 3 decades, right? So you need to have innovation in your research, and I think that really helped me to be more innovative.
Nice. This is a real applied knowledge. Yes.
Exactly.
We have a little bit of conditions in Brazil very similar to Australia, as right now in Balneário Camboriú, our area of study, we have a lot of glass buildings. This is the main problem here in the city right now, because this is a style, but this is not a very the best climate conditions for the city, because there is a lot of thermal heat in the cities because of this quantity of glass. Okay.
Interesting.
Question, and let's go into the final question, because you are 13 hours ahead of us. This is a question for my students, because they are starting their career right now. How's the career in Australia? How to get a job in Australia? How to become a professor in Australia? Is it so hard to start?
Sorry, you mean get an academic job or getting a
academic job? Yes, as a researcher, as a professor.
Obviously, I think Australia is a leading country in terms of embracing different ethnicity and different people from different culture and different countries. As long as you're competitive, because it's all about race. You know, it might not be good label for calling a academic career as a race, but it is a race. So if you're not active, if you're not active researcher, you will lag behind, right? So as long as you have good ideas, you have a good research experience, you've done a couple of projects, you're most welcome here. So it's easy to get a job in academia in Australia. If you have a good research experience, research skills, if you be able to stand out of crowd, so it means that you have some very special set of skills that stand you out from the other competitors, you have more chance to get a job in Australia. There are just quickly about the job hunting process in Australia. First of all, you need to create a cover letter, which is a part of the paperwork, and then you need to send a CV, and your CV needs to be, needs to be very full in terms of the number of publications that you have, number of project that you involve, a number of like awards that you got, research fundings that you applied and they were successful. Different research activities need to be there, and also there is something called selection criteria. So in the selection criteria, they mention a couple of like items and points, and they would ask you to provide a response, and your responses are things that make your way to a short list, like shortlisted people For example, for one academic job, there might be 500 applicants, 400 applicants, 200 applicants, right? So they go through the selection criteria. For example, for teaching, one of the selection criteria would be how many courses you've taught. This is for teaching. If this is about research, how many publications you have. So how you play a role in a team environment, how your presentation skills are. So as much as you have these experiences and activities in your profile, you have a better chance to get a job in academia in Australia. I hope that answered your question, Cassia.
Yes, of course. Yes, a leading country must have a leading process of selection of people.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to ask it to our students if they have some questions. Pessoal, alguém tem alguma pergunta a fazer? Né? Porque o professor Salman está 13 horas à nossa frente, então já são quase 10:30 da noite na Austrália. Também não queremos abusar do fuso horário, né? Se alguém não tem alguma pergunta ao professor Salman, ou se quiser mandar chat no privado, né, eu agradeço a participação de todos vocês. Obrigado pela participação nessa manhã. Apoiar aí as nossas aulas abertas do PPGGEL, uma iniciativa muito interessante para esse semestre, enquanto as nossas aulas estão remotas. E sigam acompanhando aí as outras aulas abertas que terão aí no calendário de programação, né? Well, Salman, I think our students are very shy to ask you something. Next year we have the Urban Climate Congress in Sydney, Australia. I'll try to do everything I can to go to Australia and appreciate this event, and maybe we can meet each other in this moment.
For sure. I hope that these things actually take place, because we have a very special condition in Australia, as you know, unlike other countries in the world. They closed border for the last 12 months. So it means that even citizens can go back, like citizens of different countries can go back to their countries, and some Australians, they're in different part of the world, and they can't come back to Australia because the borders are closed and there is a very strict requirement for going back. But hopefully things will change in the future with more rollout of the vaccinations. And yeah, I would definitely look forward to it, to meet you in Australia and have a chat over a coffee and see what we can do in future.
Yes, nice. It will be a pleasure. Well, thank you so much, Salman, for your participation in our live. And let's get in touch, because we have a very, very interesting project in Balneario Camboriú urban climate. Okay? Thank you so much for your participation. And
no worries. Thanks,
good night for you. Thanks. Good night for you. Have a good day for us here in Brazil.
Sure. You take care, students. And yeah, hope to see you in future.
Ok, ele espera ver todos vocês no futuro. Se caso não entender. Ok, bye time. Thank you so much.
You.
Gloria.
Thank you.
Bye. You right now.
Thank you.